Tonight, an in-depth re-examination of the evidence in one of those cases. In the case of this man, a man the media called a monster, was justice done? Tonight on Frontline, did Daddy do it?
Expose Evil here. Like, share, subscribe. Today we're going to talk about this guy Frank Fuster, who was charged with sexually abusing children, and he is still in prison today. And Frontline did this, whatever they call, I don't know. They're trying to clear it up. They did this 17 years later after he was in jail. And they basically try to make it look like he's innocent, and they basically hide the satanic ritual abuse that was going on and the mind control that comes with that. You gotta understand that satanic ritual abuse is mind control. They use trauma and hypnosis and drugs to get the victim to disassociate from reality, and this causes multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. And they can start this as young as an infant.
Start with severe torture of a very young child, usually in the range of 2 to 3 years old. The strategy is to make them highly dissociative and divide the mind so that they purposefully create multiple personalities.
By abusing the child splits into several personalities.
Yes.
How widespread are we talking?
At least tens of thousands of victims, probably hundreds of thousands.
Remember the memory of what they did with her.
You know what's coming up. Coming up is Christmas. Gotta get ready for Satan. No, I don't want
They will create a part who may be there to do sacrifices, to kill other people.
Now, another thing you need to know is that this Kabbalah witchcraft is tied in to the mind control. Somehow, some way. This Kabbalistic tree, Thoth's tree of life, the tree of life of Atlantis, the tree of life of Jewish mysticism is tied into this mind control.
All green programming is ultra green. And the green tree. Kabbalistic mysticism is mixed all into this. The case known as Country Walk is now 17 years old. In Miami, some say it all started as a love story. A young woman from Honduras, a Cuban-American man.
15-year-old girl, young woman.
It would turn out badly. The girl deported. The man in prison for the rest of his life. But in the beginning, it was romance in the promised land.
I liked everything. When I was on the plane, they gave me a whole apple and it was green. And I never seen green apples. And I saved it.
The symbol of the green apple reveals some of the hidden meaning behind the teaching of the Zohar. Tiferet, the Kabbalistic attribute of harmony and beauty, is associated with green, the color of healing. The Zohar tells us that the apple has healing qualities. Just as the apple heals all, so the Holy One, blessed be He, heals all. Just as the apple has various colors, white, red, green, so the Holy One, blessed be He, has various supernal colors. white, red, green, corresponding to the attributes of chess, loving-kindness, Geverum, might, and Tiferet, beauty. The symbol of the green apple reveals some of the hidden meaning behind this teaching of the Zohar. Tiferet, the Kabbalistic attribute of harmony and beauty, is associated with green, the color of healing.
The first thing from the airport, we went to the supermarket, and I saw a mountain full of green apples. I was like, wow.
15-year-old Ileana Flores fell in love with America and was figuring out how to stay here legally when she met a little boy.
I was about 14 or 15, and I still remember this little boy asked me what was my name. He was about 5 years old.
The 5-year-old's name was Noelle.
She was beautiful. She was a very beautiful woman. And I fell in love right away, and I said, Dad, I met a beautiful woman. She's my girlfriend, and he was, laughing with me, and I introduced him.
Frank Fuster liked what he saw.
Noelle was the one that introduced me. Noelle was the one that introduced me to Ileana. Ileana was a very sweet and very intelligent young girl.
On their first date,
He even calls her a young girl.
Frank drove Ileana to this suburban neighborhood, known as Country Walk.
We went in a really nice housing area. It was Country Walk. The homes were incredible.
Country Walk is a house development in Dade County, and I was living there with my son.
I got out of the car. The door was open. We went in. Noelle was not there.
Frank, who was 34, had sexual relations with Ileana.
I was a virgin, and the least thing I was thinking was, especially at that age, was sex. The next thing I know is I was marrying Frank 2 months later, or less than 2 months later. I don't know how to explain you that I had to marry him. I felt like that. And yes, I was 15 years old. And I was like, wow, And then I said, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to live in this big house. And that goes to your head.
But Frank's interior design business was in trouble. The mortgage on the Country Walk house was steep.
He started saying that he didn't have enough money and he needed me to work. What could I do? I was 15 years old. I'm like, I never worked before. He said, well, maybe you could take care of children from the area and you can make some money.
If they were a non-bloodline person, meaning neither parent was in the cult, but cult people had a lot of access to them in early childhood, they may also have it.
Money. And I accepted it.
Dad is a Cuban man. He wants to take care of his wife. He wants to provide the home and, provide his role, so to speak.
Frank Fuster was about to become one of those cases that really tests American justice. This community would have reason to revile him and decide to lock him away forever, overlooking difficult questions about how that was done. But those questions linger. That is what brought us to Miami.
She says she first suspected something was wrong when the girl...
Back in 1985, a kind of fever was taking hold in Miami. Rumors had spread that some daycare centers might be preying grounds for child molesters.
But cult people had a lot of access to them in early childhood.
Was Janet Reno. Since the mid-1970s, she had been an avowed advocate for children. Now, she began a crusade.
This crime for the children and for their family has been a nightmare.
The case came to light when several small children began having nightmares.
He is charged with molesting the threats.
During those months, the fear among parents spread to Frank and Ileana Fuster's neighbors in Country Walk.
Investigating still more allegations of sexual abuse.
The parents of 3-year-old Tiffany Landis were both police officers.
I got a phone call from one of the other parents, and she said to me, "Was your daughter going to Fuster's?" And I said, "Yes." "Have you had any concerns, anything unusual happen?" And I said, "A lot. My daughter had tantrums, she had nightmares. She was happy with Santa Claus. She was scared of Santa Claus. She was scared of the bunny. She used to love Michael Jackson. She was deathly afraid of Thriller."
Andrea Landis took Tiffany to a rape crisis clinic.
I saw one or two social workers. One of them gave her the anatomically correct dolls, fully dressed. And Tiffany undressed Frank, undressed Ileana, asked for more dolls, named some of the children. And then Dr. Hicks, when she did the physical examination, Tiffany started saying, "Please, not inside." And I was thinking, how does a 3-year-old know anything like that?
I was confronted by Mrs. Landis and her husband. They both police officers, and they are parents of a little girl that my wife used to babysat for 3 or 4 days.
What did they say?
They accused me. They openly told me that I had been molesting the children that were babysat by Ileana.
You must have been petrified.
No, actually, I wanted to kill Fuster.
Janet Reno was sympathetic to the parents, and in fact had been working to create a new way to build airtight cases. For the first time, she brought the crusade right into the prosecutor's office, putting a children's center alongside the sexual battery unit, staffed with her best and brightest, including David Marcus.
This unit was certainly one of the first where the state attorney's office would minimize the numbers of times that children were being interviewed, because it's very traumatic for a young child to be interviewed about a sexual battery.
It was kid-friendly law enforcement. No gruff cops, no stiff prosecutors. In their place, specialists who said they had a gift for communicating with kids. Joe and Lori Braga.
Joseph and Laura Braga, they were very opinionated. They have an unconventional appearance. They're passionate in their belief. I think they sincerely believe that what they're doing because it's the right thing to do.
The Bragas could turn kid talk into testimony. They became...
You hear how Frontline called it kid talk? The boy was given a testimony of himself being abused, and they call it kid talk. And this is what they continue to do to the kids. They act like their testimony is not worth anything, and they want to call it satanic panic. Like everyone is just going crazy, and the parents are leading the kids to say these things, and the prosecutor is leading the kids to say these things. This is what they want you to believe, your government. Okay? They call it satanic panic. Look it up.
Of child abuse in Miami.
She would sit down and tell the child that she was a yucky secrets doctor, that you could tell her things, and that they were safe to do so in that room.
Now prosecutors had a winning weapon. Multiple witnesses. And it was all on videotape.
Did other children see?
Yes.
He licked it with his mouth?
At their assistance, these interviews were videotaped because they wanted, and we wanted, there to be a record of the interviews with the children so that that could be presented to the jury.
Leanna takes her clothes off.
She takes her clothes off?
And she takes her clothes off.
Officer Andrea Landis had run Frank Fuster's name through the National Law Enforcement computer. What did that computer check show?
Showed that he was on probation.
On probation for what?
Molestation.
That must have alarmed you.
Oh, yeah.
Show anything else?
It showed the manslaughter charge in New York.
A manslaughter charge?
Yes. He had killed a man in New York.
With such revelations, it's easy to understand how the community came to so revile and even fear Frank Fuster. It turned out he had killed a man. He says it was an accident. And he admits there was a molestation charge, but says it involved a troubled family friend, and that the charge was so questionable the judge only sentenced him to probation. He thought all that was behind him. But once word of Frank's record flashed through the neighborhood, it was only a matter of time.
And we decided that I will turn myself in at the courthouse on August 10, 1984 at 10 o'clock in the morning, if I remember correctly. I turned myself in to Honorable Robert Newman. I never saw the street again.
Now, this is one of the only cases that someone got convicted and stayed that way. Most of these cases, if they convicted someone, they overturned it years later, all over the United States, under the name Satanic Panic. The government wants you to think that the kids were making this up and the parents were leading them to say these things. Look it up. A lot of these cases were overturned. It's incredible.